Hello, my lovelies. I have a long overdue book haul for you, so stay tuned. So I have 35 books here to haul for you, and I'm happy to say this is not 1 month of accumulating books. This is actually 4 months of accumulating books. So on average, I accumulated less than 10 books a month. So pat on my own back. So I have lots of different books from lots of different places. So these first two over here were books that were gifted to me. Then I have one that I got from Kickstarter. I have a couple from a little free library. This whole stack here is either Barnes & Noble or Amazon. I couldn't remember which was which. Over here are all from book boxes. So yeah, I'm a bit behind and I have a lot of catching up to do. So let's just jump right in. We'll start with these over here. So this first book was actually gifted to me by the publisher. That is Nothing Ever Happens Here by Serafina Nova Glass. This says, nothing ever happens in small towns. When Shelby Dawson survives a harrowing attack that should have left her dead, she tries to move past it, for herself and for her family. 15 months later, with the help of her best friend Mackenzie, she finally feels safe again in the snowy Minnesota town she calls home. But when an anonymous note appears on her windshield bearing the same threats her attacker made, Shelby realizes that her nightmare has only just begun. As new evidence surfaces and a group of well-meaning senior citizens accidentally makes the case go viral online, the situation quickly goes from bad to worse. And with suspicious accidents targeting those closest to her happening all over town, Shelby can't shake the feeling that she's being watched. Fighting to stay one step ahead of disaster, she finds herself asking the question on everyone's lips. Who attacked her that night? But Shelby isn't the only one with questions. Mackenzie's husband, Leo, vanished without a trace on that terrible night. And over a year later, no one knows why, until a deep dive into his finances reveals a history of debts, mismanaged funds, and hidden accounts, one of which is still active. Their suspicion that Leo is still alive only complicates things further, though, and when another person connected to Shelby goes missing, she's caught in a race against time before her attacker becomes a killer. I'm very excited to try this out. Okay, next was a gift that my mother-in-law got for me, and that is The Shadow Between Us by Tricia Levenseller. I do believe I actually have another copy of this, but I wanted this edition and I had it on my wish list, and so she got it for me. It has these beautiful stenciled edges. The book looks like this. And the end pages, it's a beautiful map. This says, they've never found the body of the first and only boy who broke my heart, and they never will. Alessandra is tired of being overlooked, but she has a plan to gain power. 1, woo the Shadow King. 2, marry him. 3, kill him and take his kingdom for herself. No one knows the extent of the freshly crowned Widow King's power. Some say he can command the shadows that swirl around him to do his bidding. Others say they speak to him, whispering the thoughts of his enemies. Regardless, Alessandra knows what she deserves, and she's going to do everything within her power to get it. But Alessandra is not the only one trying to kill the king. As attempts on his life are made, she finds herself trying to keep him alive long enough for him to make her his queen, all while struggling not to lose her heart. After all, who better for a Shadow King than a cunning, villainous queen? Okay, next is the Kickstarter that Cassandra Clare did. This was part of it. I got parts of it in, I think, the last haul I did, but this is also part of it. This is an illustrated history of notable shadow hunters and denizens of Downworld. And this book, even though it's not super thick, is heavy, and I think it's because of like all the illustrations. This is what the book looks like. The end pages. And there's like tons of artwork, and it's just like all the different characters, and it has like a ribbon bookmark. Oh, the Shadows Between Us also has like a white ribbon bookmark. Okay, let's go with this stack here. First off, we'll go with the ones that I got from little free libraries. So the first one is Top 10 Greek Islands by Eyewitness Travel. And this is just different things on different islands. And I thought it was cool because, we did Greece. Next is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This is the first book in the Knock 'Em Out series. This says, bearded bad boy barber Knox prefers to live his life the way he likes his coffee, alone. Unless you count his basset hound, Waylon. Knox doesn't tolerate drama even when it comes in the form of a stranded runaway bride. Naomi wasn't just running away from her wedding, she was riding to the rescue of her estranged twin to Knock 'Em Out, Virginia, a rough around the edges town where disputes are settled the old-fashioned way, with fists and beer, usually in that order. Too bad for Naomi, her evil twin hasn't changed at all. After helping herself to Naomi's car and cash, Tina leaves her with something unexpected. The niece Naomi didn't know she had. Now she's stuck in town with no car, no job, no plan, and no home, with an 11-year-old going on 30 to take care of. There's a reason Knox doesn't do complications or high-maintenance women, especially not the romantic ones. But since Naomi's life imploded right in front of him, the least he can do is help her out of a jam. And just as soon as she stops getting into trouble, he can leave her alone and get back to his peaceful, solitary life. At least that's the plan, until the trouble turns into real danger. Dun, dun, dun. And this next one I've heard a ton about, and that is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ying. This says, in Shaker Heights, a placid, progressive suburb of Cleveland, everything is planned, from the layout of the winding roads to the colors of the houses to the successful lives its residents will go on to lead. And no one embodies this spirit more than Elena Richardson, whose guiding principle is playing by the rules. Enter Mia Warren, an enigmatic artist and single mother who arrives in this idyllic bubble with her teenage daughter Pearl and rents a house from the Richardsons. Soon, Mia and Pearl become more than tenants. All four Richardson children are drawn to the mother-daughter pair, but Mia carries with her a mysterious past and a disregard for the status quo that threatens to upend this carefully ordered community. When old family friends of the Richardsons attempt to adopt a Chinese-American baby, a custody battle erupts that dramatically divides the town and puts Mia and Elena on opposing sides. Suspicious of Mia and her motives, Elena is determined to uncover the secrets in Mia's past, but her obsession will come at an unexpected and devastating cost. Little Fires Everywhere explores the weight of secrets, the nature of art and identity, and the ferocious pull of motherhood, and the danger of believing that following the rules can avert disaster. And I've heard amazing things about this, so I'm looking forward to reading it. Okay, next I'll go with this stack. Like I said, these are a mix of Barnes & Noble and Amazon orders. Mostly pre-orders. Okay, first up is probably one of my most recent ones. I think it is my most recent one. And that is My Funny Demon Valentine by Aurora Asher. And this is so pretty. And it just looked so stinking cute. This says, from the instant New York Times bestselling author Aurora Asher comes the first novel in a wickedly funny, spicy series about demons, curses, and a very bad thing called love. Asmodeus, Prince of Hell, just wants to make music, jazz specifically. Unfortunately, he's a demon, and he's supposed to be evil. Clearly, for Ash, a career as a musician isn't exactly an option. Plus, he's cursed. Sick of playing by the rules, Ash and his three brothers escape hell in search of freedom on Earth. But it's harder than they thought to keep their enemies off their tails. Yet everything changes for Ash when he meets a beautiful violinist who can see through his curse. No matter the risk, he has to have her. Evangeline Gregory is just your average human. She works at a jazz bar, plays gigs on the weekends, and apparently hallucinates demons. At least that's what Eva tells herself when moments after she meets the man of her dreams, she sees him shift into a 7-foot-tall monster. Not believing her own eyes, Eva decides to investigate and soon finds herself in the middle of a supernatural clusterfuck. But Ash isn't the only one keeping secrets, and a shocking truth will change Eva's life forever. Or maybe just doom it. The path to love can be complete hell. I think this is going to be such a fun read. Next is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah P. Parker. This also has these pretty sprayed edges. Ooh, beautiful end pages. This says, the best-selling sensation When the Moon Hatched is a fast-paced fantasy romance featuring an immersive, vibrant world with mysterious creatures, a unique magic system, and a love that blazes through the ages. As an assassin for the rebel group Fear Duoth. Rave's job is to complete orders and never get caught. When a rival bounty hunter turns her world upside down, blood spills, hearts break, and Rave finds herself imprisoned by the Guild of Nobles, a group of powerful fae who turn her into a political statement. Crushed by the loss of his great love, Convager took the head of a king and donned his melted crown. Now on a tireless quest to quell the never-ebbing ache in his chest, a clue lures him to the capital's high-security prison where he stumbles upon the imprisoned Rave. Echoes of the past race between them. There's more to their story than meets the eye, but some truths are too poisonous to swallow. Okay, this next book, probably my most anticipated. It is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I got the pretty sprayed edges, or stenciled edges. Here is a map. Okay, so because this is the third book in the series, I've pulled up on Goodreads the synopsis for the first book so I could tell you about it. This says, enter the brutal and elite world of a war college for dragon riders. 20-year-old Violet Sorgill was supposed to enter the scribe quadrant, living a quiet life among books and history. Now the commanding general, also known as her toughest talon's mother, has ordered Violet to join the hundreds of candidates striving to become the elite of Navarre, dragon riders. But when you're smaller than everyone else and your body is brittle, death is only a heartbeat away, because dragons don't bond to fragile humans. They incinerate them. With fewer dragons willing to bond than candidates, most would kill Violet to better their own chances of success. The rest would kill her just for being her mother's daughter. Like Xaden Ryerson, the most powerful and ruthless wing leader in the Riders Quadrant. She'll need every edge her wits can give her just to see the next sunrise. Yet with every day that passes, the war outside grows more deadly, the kingdom's protective wards are falling, and the death toll continues to rise. Even worse, Violet begins to suspect leadership is hiding a terrible secret. Friends, enemies, lovers, everyone at Basgiath War College has an agenda, because once you enter, there are only two ways out: graduate or die. And I loved it. And I love the second book. This next book is also a sequel, and it has these beautiful edges. I have Four Ruined Realms by Mai Corland, and so pretty. It has these beautiful sprayed edges, or end pages, not sprayed end pages. But because this is a sequel, I've pulled up on Goodreads to tell you about the first book, which is Five Broken Blades. This says, it's the season for treason. The king of Yusan must die. The five most dangerous liars in the land have been mysteriously summoned to work together for a single objective: to kill the god King Jun. He has it coming. Under his merciless immortal hand, the nobles flourish, while the poor and innocent are imprisoned, ruined, or sold. And now each of the five blades will come for him. Each has tasted bitterness, from the hired hitman seeking atonement, a lovely assassin who seeks freedom, or even the prince banished for his cruel crimes. None can resist the sweet, icy lure of vengeance. They can agree on murder, they can agree on treachery. But for these five killers, each versed in deception, lies, and betrayal, it's not enough to forge an alliance. To survive, they'll have to find a way to trust each other, but only one can take the crown. Let the best liar win. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. Next up is The Last One by Rachel Housel Hall. I believe this was an Amazon one. And I remember seeing these pretty edges. That's what got me. This is what the book looks like. And the end pages. This says, explosive and enthralling romantasy debut from New York Times bestselling author Rachel Housel Hall. Thrown in a desolate land of sickness and unnatural beasts, Kai wakes in the woods with no idea who she is or how she got there. All she knows is she cannot reach the Sea of Devour. Even this hellscape will get worse. But when she sees the village blacksmith fight invaders with unspeakable skill, she decides to accept his offer of help. Too bad he's as skilled at annoying her as he is at fighting. As she searches for answers, Kai only finds more questions, especially regarding the blacksmith who can ignite her body like a flame, then douse it with ice in the next breath. And no one is what or who they appear to be in the kingdom of Vinvridith, including the man whose secrets might be as deadly as the land itself. Okay, next up is another sequel. This is actually book 9.5. I really like this series. That is Keeper of the Lost Cities Unraveled by Shannon Messenger. It's actually one of the shorter books. This one did come from Barnes & Noble because it has the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. But this is what the front looks like. And the end pages. So again, because this is book 9.5, I can't really tell you about it without spoiling things. So I did pull up the first book on Goodreads. So essentially, this series starts as middle grade, but as it goes, it becomes more YA. I think at this point in the series, it's already YA. So in book 1, our main character is 12 years old, so it is middle grade. This says, 12-year-old Sophie Foster has a secret. She's a telepath, someone who hears the thoughts of everyone around her. It's a talent she's never known how to explain. Everything changes the day she meets Fitz, a mysterious boy who appears out of nowhere and also reads minds. She discovers there's a place she does belong, and that staying with her family will place her in grave danger. In the blink of an eye, Sophie is forced to leave behind everything and start a new life in a place that is vastly different from anything she's ever known. Sophie has new rules to learn and new skills to master, and not everyone is thrilled that she has come home. There are secrets buried deep in Sophie's memory, secrets about who she really is and why she was hidden among humans, that other people desperately want, would even kill for. In this page-turning debut, Shannon Messenger creates a riveting story where one girl must figure out why she is the key to her brand new world before the wrong person finds the answer first. And it is really a fantastic, fantastic series. Okay, now let me move on to this stack down here. Okay, so this next book is technically the first book in a series, but it's sort of a continuation of another series. So, okay, the book is The Grandest Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And it says here, it's an Inheritance Games novel. So this is set a year after the Inheritance Game novels. So I don't know if reading this would be a spoiler or not. So, but because this is the first book in the series, I don't really want to read the synopsis for the first book in the Inheritance Games, just because this is a whole new series, sort of. So if you don't want to hear what this is about, you can just skip ahead, but I will go ahead and read this one. This says, welcome to The Grandest Game, a dazzling, life-changing competition run by billionaire Avery Grahams and the 4 infamous Hawthorne brothers. Designed to offer a chance at fame and riches, this year's game is limited to 7 lucky players. Lyra is haunted by the death of her father and the mysteries he left behind. She tells herself that she's playing the grandest game for the multi-million-dollar prize money, not for answers about the Hawthorne family's involvement in her father's death, and not to confront the infuriating, enigmatic Grayson Hawthorne, who spurned her once before. Facing off against Lyra are Gigi, Grayson's half-sister and human ray of sunshine, who is determined to prove that she is capable of more than anyone has ever given her credit for, and Rowan, who has very few morals, a dangerous and eclectic skill set, and no future, unless he wins the game. Swept away to a private island rife with luxury and puzzles to be solved, Lyra, Gigi, and Rowan must do whatever it takes to best one another, a cast of formidable rivals, and a game that only the sharpest minds can conquer. As sparks fly and the brain-bending challenges push the players to their limits, it becomes clear that everyone has secrets, and the past won't stay buried forever. Who has what it takes to win? And I really, really enjoyed the Inheritance Game, so I'm looking forward to this as well. Next up, we have The Last Hour Between Worlds by Melissa Caruso. This says, fall headfirst into a brilliant new fantasy adventure full of mind-bending magic and sapphic romance. Star investigator Kimbrel Thorne has a few hours away from her newborn, and she just wants to relax and enjoy the year-turning party. But when people start dropping dead, she's got to get to work, especially when she finds that mysterious forces are plunging the whole party down through layers of reality and into nightmare. 1 layer down, it's no big deal. Stay alert and you'll be fine. 2, 3 layers down, natural laws are negotiable and everything gets strange. 4 layers down, there are creatures with eyes in their teeth and walls that drip blood. Most people who fall this far never return. Luckily, Kim isn't most people, but as cosmic powers align and the hour grows late, she'll have to work with her awfully compelling nemesis, notorious cat burglar Rika Nunsuch, for a chance to save her city, though not her night off. I'm looking forward to this. I really loved her Rooks and Ruin series, which she was one of our season-a-thon authors, and we read The Obsidian Tower for that, but I have since read the whole series and loved all of it. So I'm really looking forward to reading this too. Next up is On a Quiet Street by Serafina Nova Glass. And by the time this video posts, most definitely my announcement video will already be up for my Spring in a Reading-a-thon. Heck, I don't know when this video is going to go up actually, so Spring in a Reading-a-thon might already be over. But this is actually our group book for that, and Serafina will be joining us for a live show for that. If that's already happened by the time I edit and post this video, I will link that live show up above. If not, I'll just link the announcement video. Anyway, this says, the perfect neighborhood can be the perfect place to hide. Who wouldn't want to live in Brighton Hills? This exclusive community on the Oregon coast is the perfect mix of luxury and natural beauty. Stunning houses nestle beneath mighty Douglas firs, and lush backyards roll down to the lakefront. It's the kind of place where neighbors look out for one another, sometimes a little too closely. Cora thinks her husband Finn is cheating. She just needs to catch him in the act. That's where Paige comes in. Paige lost her son to a hit and run last year, and she's drowning in the kind of grief that makes people do reckless things like spying on the locals, searching for proof that her son's death was no accident, and agreeing to Cora's plan to reveal what kind of man Finn really is. All the while, the reclusive new neighbor, Georgia, is acting more strangely every day. But what could such a lovely young mother possibly be hiding? When you really start to look beyond the airy open floor plans and marble counters, Brighton Hills is filled with secrets. Some big, some little, some deadly, and one by one, they're about to be revealed. I can't wait to read this. Okay, next up is A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed, and it is this really pretty edition. I love it. The book looks like this. The end page is like this. This says, it begins as all things did. A girl on the shore, terrified and desirous. Desirous? Desire? I don't know how to say that. Desire? Us. Desirous? Effie Sayer has always believed in fairy tales. Even though, crumbling under the pressure of her first term at college, she can't always seem to tell the difference between fact and fiction. Her only solace has been Agnahard, an epic from Lyrian national hero and author Imris Meridan. Taken by chance and maybe fate to the late author's estate, she is intent on finding the purpose to her own story, but instead stumbles upon Preston Hillary, a scholar from the Literature College. Preston has come to Hirith Manor, determined to prove Effie's favorite author is a fraud, and her only hope of proving him wrong is to conspire with him. But Harath, perched on the very edge of a wrathful ocean, holds dark secrets, the likes of which both Effie and Preston thought only existed in the pages of Meridan's stories. The house and the truth might just ruin them both, as the sea threatens to swallow it, them and all their stories whole. Part historical fantasy, part rivals to lovers' romance, and part Gothic mystery, this feminist fairy tale has captivated readers with its haunting, dreamlike atmosphere. So I actually recently saw Becca from Becca in the Books read this, and she was like, yes, the atmosphere, this is all about the atmosphere. It's a really eerie kind of atmosphere. Though she did say that she had some issues with this technically being a fantasy world, but because it's a fantasy world, it shouldn't have some of these like mundane things, like there's cigarettes and stuff like that in here. So we'll see what I think whenever I get to reading that. So next up is an older duology, but it kind of recently came out with these new paperbacks, and I wanted them because I kind of want to get everything by this author because I've really enjoyed her work. So I have Frigid and Scorched by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and they have these like buttery matte covers, and pretty sprayed edges to match. So Frigid is the first book, so I'll read you about it. No one could replace me in his life. I knew that. I was a friend who knew everything about him and whom he trusted above everyone else. For 21-year-old Sydney Bell, being in love with Kyler isn't anything new. They've been best friends ever since he pushed her down on the playground and she made him eat a mud pie. Somewhere over the years, she fell for him and fell hard. The problem, he's never stayed with a girl for longer than a few nights. And with it being their last year of college, Sydney won't risk their friendship by declaring her feelings. Meanwhile, Kyler has always put Sydney on a pedestal too high to reach. To him, she's everything, but he's hidden away his feelings, drowning them in other girls instead. After all, Kyler will always be the poor boy from the wrong side of the tracks, and Sid will always be the best thing he can never have. But when they're stranded together at a posh ski resort after a massive snowstorm, there's nothing stopping their red-hot feelings from finally coming to the surface. Can their friendship survive the attraction? Better yet, can they survive at all? Because as the snow falls, someone is stalking them, and this trip may be a life changer in more ways than one. I'm very excited. Okay, these next two definitely came, actually these next three definitely came from Barnes & Noble because I was just walking around and I started looking at Christmassy books because I was like, I need more Christmassy books in my life. Okay, so these first two books, they're technically part of the same series, but I think that they can actually be read as standalones. So the series is called Falling in Mistletoe, and I think it's because they're located, they're both like in the same little world. They're both in Mistletoe, Idaho. So book one is 10 Things I Hate About Mistletoe by Cody Hall. And the next one is Mistletoe Mischief by Cody Hall. So I can actually tell you about both of these because, like I said, they don't seem like they follow the same people. They're just in the same town. So 10 Things I Hate About Mistletoe. This says, a misunderstanding sparks an enemies to lovers romance between an outdoorsman and an aspiring writer. So far, no man in Mistletoe, Idaho has measured up to the literary heroes in Delilah Gill's favorite books. Anthony Russo is no exception. She's not sure why the steamy smooch they once shared suddenly turned frosty, and she's tried to keep her distance ever since. But she's had enough of being serially single, and she's decided it's the perfect time to put herself out there. Anthony isn't interested in playing games, and he doesn't like being used, especially not to make his own best friend jealous. Still, a bruised ego doesn't stop him from imagining kissing Delilah again when she shows up to the local watering hole looking like $1,000,000, and the other single men in town start to notice her considerable charms. As December approaches and the Christmas festivities ramp up, both Delilah and Anthony find themselves roped into Mistletoe's seasonal happenings. It won't be long now before proximity turns loathing into interest and ultimately a romance that could lead to a very happy holiday indeed. And then for Mistletoe Mischief, this says, a case of mistaken identity leads to holiday hijinks in this laugh-out-loud contemporary romance. In need of a distraction from his dumpster fire of a love life, adventure tour guide Pike Sutton is thrilled when his favorite travel podcaster accepts an invitation to experience the gorgeous landscapes and festive charms of Mistletoe, Idaho. He knows her visit will mean great things for the business he shares with his friend Anthony, but Pike has no idea that the real force behind excursions is nothing like what he sees on social media. Ryler Perkins is perfectly happy being the voice behind the microphone, while her cousin stars as the face of their popular podcast. She's used to men drooling all over Alea, but for once she finds herself wishing a certain sexy hipster lumberjack would notice her instead. Maybe that's why Ryler completely loses her mind and makes the move on Pike. Their kiss under the mistletoe is more than steamy, but it abruptly ends when Pike discovers he's been smooching Alea's assistant. He isn't about to jeopardize everything by seducing a woman who's off limits. But as Pike guides the podcast crew around town and into the great outdoors, Ryler seems determined to get him hotter under the collar than a steaming cup of cocoa. Also, it sounds so cute. This one is a thick one. So this is another one that I picked up when I did that from Barnes & Noble. But it also looks really cute. So this is How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Megan Quinn. See how thick this thing is? Like 470 pages. But this says, every Kringle in Kringletown celebrated Christmas a lot, but Coal Black on Whistle Lane unfortunately did not. As his fellow citizens decorate their quaint town, brimming with carols and glad tidings, Cole wants nothing more than to hibernate the winter away. But his dreary plans are thwarted when his Christmas nemesis, Story Taylor, moves in next door to care for her Aunt Cindy. Immediately, the new neighbor turns his life into a real nightmare before Christmas, especially when she decides to enter the town Christmas Kringle contest in honor of Cindy. And better yet, Story is determined to win. Over Cole's dead body, she will. With the help from his friend Max, Cole decides to enter the competition as well and beat Story at her own game by pretending that this hometown grump's heart has grown 3 sizes this season and he's fallen for the girl next door. And unfortunately for Story, she has to follow his lead to have a chance at the Christmas Kringle title. But the competition isn't the only thing that heats up. Cole and Story's fake relationship becomes very real, and before they know it, they're attempting to hide it from Aunt Cindy. Things get complicated, the competition gets tough, and all it takes is one single night for someone to steal it all. And I love it. I love that it's a Grinch Stole Christmas retelling, and I think it's just going to be fun. Okay, next up, I don't know if this was Amazon or Barnes & Noble, because I would have ordered it online. That is Bloodguard by C.C. Robson. And this is another one with beautiful edges. Ooh. The book looks like this. And the end pages look like this. That red just really, really stands out. This says, 100 years, tens of thousands of gladiators, and today only one will rise. Everything in the kingdom of Arrow is a lie. Lithe of Grey thought coming to this new land and volunteering to fight in the gladiator arena, vicious, bloodthirsty tournaments where only the strongest survive, would earn him enough gold to save his dying sister. He thought there was nothing left to lose. He was wrong, and they took everything, his hope, his freedom, his very humanity. All Lithe has left is his battle-scarred body, fueled by rage and hardened from years of fighting for the right to live another day. When Lithe meets Maeve, an elven royal who is everything he despises, everything he should hate, until the alluring princess offers him the one thing he needs most, a chance to win the coveted title of Bloodguard and his freedom. But in a kingdom built on secrets and lies, hope doesn't come cheap, nor will his ultimate revenge. I think this sounds so good. Okay, the last one in that stack, this one actually got a little bit damaged on the corner, unfortunately. That is The Courting of Bristol Keats by Mary E. Pearson. So pretty. But yeah, he got a little smush there. This one says, Dangerous Fate, Dark Secrets, Addictive Romance. After losing both their parents, Bristol Keats and her sisters struggle to stay afloat in their small, quiet town of Bowskeep. When Bristol begins to receive letters from an aunt she's never heard of who promises she can help, she reluctantly agrees to meet and discovers that everything she thought she knew about her family is a lie. Her father might even still be alive, not killed but kidnapped by terrifying creatures and taken to a whole other realm, the one he is from. Desperate to save her father and find the truth, Bristol journeys to a land of gods and fae and monsters. Pulled into a dangerous world of magic and intrigue, she makes a deadly bargain with the fae leader, Tigan. But what she doesn't know is that he's the one who drove her parents to live a life on the run, and he is just as determined as she is to find her father, dead or alive. Very exciting. Okay, on to this final stack. Okay, so of that stack, these are all from Harlequin Afterglow, and then these are Book of the Month. Okay, starting with the Harlequin Afterglow. First off, we have Stuck in the Country with You by Zuri Day. This one says, Good fences make good neighbors, except when a scorching shared past makes things complicated, in this delightful city meets country romance from Zuri Day. She's packing her bags and her baggage. 10 years ago, Genesis Washington made a very poor decision. At the time, it seemed great, fantastic, explosive. But the truth is, your one-night rebound should never be your younger brother's rival. And he definitely shouldn't be someone who allegedly only slept with you to gain the upper hand, even if the sex was amazing. Now Genesis is blindsided when the farm she's inherited just happens to be right next door to Jackson King, the regrettable one-night stand she's still painfully attracted to. This man has aged like the finest of wines, and what's worse, he's now a thoughtful and responsible father. Good thing Genesis has a long distance boyfriend. Well, sort of. It's complicated. Jackson and his hotness should be easy enough to ignore, but when city girl Genesis discovers there's a serious learning curve to her humble new home, it's Jackson who's there to lend a very skilled helping hand. With every problem that arises, Jackson is seemingly making all the right moves, both on the farm and when things heat up behind closed doors. But surely that doesn't mean he's right for Genesis, does it? Actually, because I want the hardbacks on the bottom, I'm going to skip the rest of the Harlequin Afterglow for right now and go straight to the book of the month. That way the books don't get bent over the edge. Okay, so first of the book of the month books, we have Beautiful Ugly by Alison Feeney. This says, the million-copy best-selling Queen of Twist returns with a gripping and deliciously dark thriller about marriage and revenge. Author Grady Green is having the worst, best day of his life. He calls his wife Abby to share some exciting news as she is driving home. He hears Abby slam on the brakes when she sees something in the road ahead. Over Grady's protest, Abby gets out of the car. When he eventually finds her car by the cliff's edge, the headlights are on, the driver's door is open, her phone is still there, but his wife has disappeared. A year later, Grady is still overcome with grief and desperate to know what happened to Abby. He can't sleep and he can't write, so he travels to a tiny remote Scottish island to try to get his life back on track. And then he sees the impossible, a woman who looks exactly like his missing wife. Next we have A Killing Cold by Kate Alice Marshall. And this says, a whirlwind romance. When Theodora Scott met Connor, wealthy, charming, and a member of a powerful Dalton family, she fell in love in an instant. 6 months later, he's brought her to Idlewood, his family's isolated winter retreat, to win over his skeptical relatives. Stay away from Connor Dalton. Theo has tried to ignore the threatening messages on her phone, but she can't ignore the footprints in the snow outside the cabin window or the strange sense of familiarity she has about this place. Then, in a disused cabin, Theo finds something impossible. A photo of herself as a child, a photo taken at Idlewood. I've been here before. Theo has almost no recollection of her earliest years, but now she begins to piece together the fragments of her memories and realizes she's in terrible danger. Someone here has a shocking secret that they will do anything to keep hidden, and discovering what happened at Idlewood may cost Theo everything. Dun dun dun. Next is P.S. I Hate You by Lauren Connolly. 2 X's, 8 destinations, love travels fast. This says, in this splendidly bittersweet romantic comedy, enemies forced together by a mutual loss are led on a cross-country journey toward a second chance. Maddie Sanderson would be proud to honor her older brother's dying wish that she scatter his ashes over 8 destinations that the adventurous 29-year-old never got to visit before he died from cancer. But in his will, Josh assigned her an impossible partner to help complete the mission, Dominic Perry. Seriously, if Maddie weren't already at her brother's funeral, she would kill him for this. Sure, Dom was Josh's lifelong best friend. He's also the infuriating man who broke Maddie's heart back when she was naive enough to give it to him. But since Dom insists on following the rules and Josh didn't leave much room for Maddie to argue the matter, they embark together on a series of farewell trips that span thousands of miles, exploring new places and revisiting their complicated history along the way. After a snowstorm leads to a shared bed, Maddie starts to wonder if her brother might be matchmaking from the grave. But when grief reopens old wounds between them, Maddie will need more than Josh's ghostly guidance to trust Dom again. I also love a travel-y kind of book, so I'm excited for this. Next is The Book of Witching by C.J. Cook. This one says, a mother must fight for her daughter's life in this fierce and haunting tale of witchcraft and revenge. Clem gets a call that is every mother's worst nightmare. Her 19-year-old daughter, Erin, is unconscious in the hospital after a hiking trip with her friends on the remote Orkney Islands met a horrifying end, leaving her boyfriend dead and her best friend missing. When Erin wakes, she doesn't recognize her mother, and she doesn't answer her to her name, but insists she is someone named Nyx. Clem travels to the site of her daughter's accident, determined to find out what happened to her. The answer may lie in a dark secret in the history of the Orkneys, a woman wrongly accused of witchcraft and murder 4 centuries ago. Clem begins to wonder whether Erin's strange behavior is a symptom of a broken mind or the effects of an ancient curse. Okay, and now I can put this Afterglow book there. and continue on with the Afterglow books. Next up, we have Love in Translation by Joss Wood. This says, this could be their greatest adventure yet. A stressed out translator on the brink of a meltdown and a thrill seeker with a serious case of wanderlust finds love outside their comfort zones. Up until a few months ago, Rio Whitlock had it all. Stability, self-confidence, and a safe job as an interpreter for the United Nations. It was the predictable sort of existence she, as a dedicated homebody, had always dreamed of. The security she needed thanks to her nomadic #van life upbringing. But ever since an unfortunate hot mic moment threw her career into a tailspin, she's been struggling, really struggling, with fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. A calculated escape is in order, and Rio knows just the place. Her grandmother's secluded hideaway in the breathtaking town of Gilmartin. Except she won't be alone, thanks to a random twist of fate. Fletcher Wright lives for adrenaline, always chasing the next high. So when he learns he'll have to share his rental accommodations with Rio, a stranger basically, he simply chalks it up to another challenge. It doesn't hurt that there's an immediate attraction between them, which neither can explain. Before long, they're not just sharing a house and new experiences, they're sharing a bed. But when it's time for Fletcher to move on to the next adventure, he and Rio will have to decide, are they ready to take the biggest risk of all? And yay for another fun, travel-y kind of book. Okay, this next book, when I saw it, it's got to be just the aesthetics of the cover, but it screamed Valentine's book to me. This is Brewing Up a Bad Boy by Catherine Cabrera. This says, a tea shop owner, good girl, and a reformed microbrewer bad boy reunite in this wonderfully wicked love story. Sometimes the second sip is sweetest. In the cozy town of Birch Lake, tea shop owner Poppy Kitchener thought she left her mistakes and her failed marriage in the past. But when her ex-husband, Alistair Miller, turns up as charming and irritatingly handsome as ever, those old feelings float to the surface. To top it off, he has a puzzling proposition. Pretend they're still married for his cousin's wedding in exchange for a lucrative business deal with his family. Easy enough, right? After all, this could be Poppy's last chance to get closure, grow her business, and use Alistair's knowledge of microbrewing to help her finish that winning recipe for the tea competition. But even after all this time, he still knows how to make her laugh, and he's changed in ways that make Poppy wonder about the man he's become. Can she trust this new Alistair with her heart, or will a second chance brew up disaster? Next is The Relationship Mechanic by Carmen Lee. This says, there's more than one way to love and more than one place to call home. In this rousing, small-town romantic comedy that's sure to charm fans of Hannah Bonman Young's Next to You and Ashley Herring Blake's Iris Kelly Doesn't Date. There's no fix for a lonely heart like a little TLC. Jessica J.N. Miller came to Peach Blossom, Georgia for a visit, not a breakdown. But when her rental car dies on the outskirts of town, mechanic Lavinia Vinnie Williams provides a tow and a very welcome jump start to Jessica's heart. It's been a minute since Jessica's last fling, her relationship's specialty, and Vinnie checks all the right boxes. If only the sexy car whisperer seemed interested. Vinnie knows herself and what she wants. She loves her job, her family, her hometown, but she'd love to fall in love. Jessica stirs up all the right feelings, but the city girl has no intention of staying in Peach Blossom. Why sign up for a broken heart? But the temptation is real as Vinnie goes out of her way to drive a careless Jessica around town. The pair can't seem to keep their distance or their hands to themselves. With only 6 weeks to figure out where their red-hot chemistry might lead, Vinnie and Jessica will have to decide if home can be where the heart is when the heart only knows how to run. Okay, be right back. Gotta change my battery out real quick. Okay, sorry about that. I went ahead and also changed out my SD card while I was at it because it was also getting pretty full and I didn't want to have to stop again. Okay, continuing on. Next up we have Church Girl by Naima Simone, maybe? This says, she's a preacher's daughter, a runaway bride, and now the not quite qualified nanny for a sexy tattoo artist with a beautiful daughter and a dirty mouth. What's a bad boy to do with a woman like her? Everything. Alea Montgomery isn't just ditching her wedding, she's also fleeing her suffocating small town and her family's expectations. She's got plans for college, for finding herself, but landing a job in Chicago that fits her schedule isn't easy. Good thing Von Howard is desperate to find a live-in nanny. Bad thing that he's a gritty, grumpy, gorgeous tattoo artist carrying as much baggage as he has ink. Vaughn's new hire is inexperienced and a fire hazard in the kitchen. She's also all thick curls, thicker curves, and a distracting mix of innocence and sensuality. After the upheaval of a divorce, he just needs a nanny, not a sneaky link. Meanwhile, Alea is bonding with his 7-year-old daughter and showing an unexpected flair for tattoo art. Who could resist? Yet deep down, Alea is still running from her feelings and her fear of losing herself to someone else's expectations again. Even as their pasts return to haunt them, their undeniable heat says maybe it's time to stand and fight for a love they didn't see coming. Next is The Grump Whisperer by Katie James. This says, keep calm and ride on. For fans of Elsie Silver and Hannah Grace comes a charmingly engaging story about tumbling down, falling in love, and getting back in the saddle when it counts. Horse manager Bronan Jones is just about at her wit's end. The barn is under new ownership and things are going downhill fast. Now the situation is dire. Bills are unpaid, they're low on feed and hay, and the mountain of manure is the stuff of nightmares. Which is when he arrives. Former show jumper Ian Kingston is an absolutely gorgeous wreck of a man with a deep scowl. He had the career she always dreamed of until his most recent injury destroyed any hope of professional riding. Ian wants nothing to do with Bronan, the responsibilities for horses, or anything that reminds him of what he lost. Only Bronwyn isn't about to let their resident Mr. Rochester off easy. Not when there are horses that need tending, and when a glorious but skittish stallion arrives, Bronwyn and Ian are forced to work together, even as attraction cackles between them. Both must face the pile of crap that keeps them from moving forward, and the outcome may be the greatest ride of their lives. Next is Love and Other Hollywood Endings by Susanna Irwin. This says, an upbeat production exec is tasked with reining in the cynical director who was her forbidden college heartbreak in this sparkling, sexy contemporary romance. The best love stories happen off-screen. It's a perfect beginning. Upbeat screenwriting student is mentored by genius but grumpy indie filmmaker. They argue over movies and share one secret kiss. But then comes the gut punch Sutton Spencer didn't expect. Xavier Duval skips town and ghosts her completely, right after savagely critiquing her screenplay. Fast forward 10 years, and Sutton is now a movie exec vying for a VP position. To prove herself, she offers to travel to a remote shoot and oversee Xavier's new sci-fi blockbuster, which has gone way over budget. This time, she's in charge. And Xavier? He's as talented, gruff, and hot as she remembers, and still convinced there are no happy ever afters in real life. Xavier knows he messed up with Sutton, but he had his reasons. Now, seeing the way she combined sweetness with nerves of steel to get his production back on track, he almost wishes he believed in romance. Instead, they agree to an on-set fling, one that will fade to black when shooting stops. On paper, it's that simple, but life and love has a way of going wildly off script. And for the last one that I have here is Breaking Point by Yara St. Jones. And this says, falling in love costs Tegan her heart and a pro tennis career. But when her rival returns, they've got one last chance for a rematch, if they can keep their game to the court. She came to serve. Tegan Williams knows how to take a loss, especially a big one. After the spectacular collapse of her tennis career and her romantic relationship, note to self, betrayal does not go with tennis whites, she puts down her racket, picked herself up, and started her life over. But now Tegan's been asked to compete in her country club's tournament, and she's considering it, because what's the worst that could happen? Her ex. The spotlight stealing, almost love of her life, that's what could happen. Dominic Fletcher gave up everything for tennis, to be a star, to be the best, to bring in the Benjamins. After all, his entire family is depending on him. So why does he feel so discontent? It's not until he attends a charity tennis tournament that he understands why. Tegan. Now Tegan and Dominic are taking their differences out on the court and off, because despite their past, their chemistry sparks hotter than ever, but getting a chance to even the score is one thing. Playing to win is an entirely different game. Okay, so those are all 35 books that I accumulated in the past 4 months. Have you guys read any of them? Did you like them? Did you not? Comment down below and let me know. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. And until next time, remember to always be completely you. Bye!